Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing fine wherever you might be. As part of the continuing Canada series, today I'm going to be talking, hopefully, a short talk about health insurance. If you've heard anything about Canada, you know that there are some stereotypes that most people usually like to go to when they describe Canada or talk about Canada or make jokes about Canada. Canadians are polite. Maple syrup, hockey, cold. But one of them definitely is the fact that Canada has universal health insurance. And it definitely is one of the quote unquote wins of Canada or living in Canada. I lived in Ontario, and what we had in Ontario was a card, and we used to call it the OHIP card, Ontario Health Insurance Plan card. And because people pay tax, basically health insurance is free. You can go to the hospital, you can go and see a doctor, your family doctor, a clinic, and all you do is you show that to them and you're fine. You don't pay for anything. Of course, as we all know, issues related to insurance and legal systems pertaining to insurance are always complex, so it's not like they pay for everything. But all the substantial things you'd want are, again, quote unquote, free. MRIs and CAT scans, I think I had one of them once. Most operations and staying at a hospital, whenever my daughter complained of, my ankle hurts, we'd just take her to the hospital. X-rays and doctors would come and go, and you'd go to children's ward, and it was nice and clean and spacious, and they treat you well, all free. You'd walk out after it was done. You didn't have to go to the financial department and pay a bill, and it really was one of the best things about Canada, the fact that you didn't have to worry about these things. I think the best thing about it was when my daughter was born. Of course, part of the costs of the room that my wife stayed in after giving birth and all that was related to her workplace, and the financial assistance that she got from the insurance related to her workplace. But even if she did not have a job, it was basically guaranteed that you just go to the hospital with all the mod cons, and you'd give birth, and when it was done, you just leave. And it was a good feeling to know that even if you didn't have money, it was all covered. Of course, medication is not covered for the most part. Like if you go to a doctor and you get a prescription and then you take it to the pharmacy, you have to pay for it if your workplace doesn't cover some or all of it. But if I'm not mistaken, just before we left Canada, they did make changes in the law, and if I'm correct, I think children under a certain age, or I think even people under 25, did not have to pay for their medication, which was an amazing plus to have. Of course, the health insurance, the universal health insurance of your province, never pays for anything related to your teeth or eyeglasses, so those you have to cover, or if you have an employer, they might cover some of the costs. I mean, if it's a good employer with good insurance, you might have like 80% of it covered or like 60% of it covered. I'm not a specialist in these fields, but that's what my experience shows. If I had to mention a downside, the only downside, and it's not specific to Canada, is that when you have universal health insurance for everybody, you're going to be paying taxes, and a lot of taxes. I don't have numbers for you, but part of the reason why taxes in Canada were so high and everybody was working for the tax man was universal health insurance. And another downside, which it's not really a downside, it's just a side effect of having to provide health insurance for all those people for free all the time, and I'm sure it exists in all the other places, is that wait times were long. Hospitals and clinics, you would wait for a long time. There were some, I know these are outliers, but there were even some stories of somebody going to the emergency ward and having to wait like 24 hours because they had a broken arm or leg. And then there was even a story of somebody who passed away. But it would be absolutely unfair to try and use a couple of examples from a newspaper to say that, this health insurance is horrible, you got to wait a long time. Well, of course you have to wait a long time. It's free. I don't really begrudge Canada for anything related to their health insurance system. So this is one of the pluses of living in Canada. You have health insurance. It's not, they always say it's free. It's not really free. You're paying for it with your taxes, but it feels free when you get it. Especially after you have a kid, you start using more and more of it, and it feels better because you can take your kid to a hospital or a doctor or a specialist, and it's always free. It's a good feeling to have. Well, that's the piece about the health insurance, and I'll see you next time. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section. I'll be happy to respond. Thank you very much. Have a good day or night.